All right, everyone, welcome back to the fastest growing, most popular podcast on the topic of life insurance.
It's it's,
I'm your
it's now
host,
the
Caleb
it's now,
Williams.
it's
We
now the
got
running joke.
we got Dom the roof ranner, who ran many
Hey,
times, who loves to run,
check
and then
you
we got
out.
Austin Williams, who's our world traveler around the United States. Gentlemen, welcome. Okay, so in today's topic, it's going to be very spicy. We're going to be talking about the industry problems, and I just so you all know, next episode we're going to be talking about the solutions. So I'm not a big fan of just throwing in problems and woe is us, but I do think if we cannot articulate the issues, then we can be spinning our wheels and trying to figure out like we need to solve, we need to be better, we need to do things the right way. But it's like, okay, the right way compared to what? And a lot of times, if you're in the industry, if you're in the life insurance industry, you might be able to resonate with some of the stories and some of our opinions. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments on if you've been in the industry, what you think our issues are, and what do you think some of the biggest problems are. And if you're not in the industry and you're just a consumer and you're like, here's my opinions on some of the problems. We're gonna talk about that. It's gonna be like a therapy session, you could say. And then the next episode, we'll talk about the solutions, which I think what you'll find is that we're on the path of actually trying to be a solution in our industry. But I think there's things that we can do better, and I think there's things that the industry can do better as a whole. As we get rolling here, Dom, I would love to hear your initial thoughts to this whole problems in the industry, and your some of your overviews and takeaways.
Yeah, I think if people are coming and watching our channel, they're probably assuming right away we're going to start with like people saying, "Oh, you write all base policies, like that's the problem," or you write um, not properly designed, quote unquote, whatever properly even means. When I think of it, I think of the grandiose scheme of things. And a lot of it, I think, even comes down to these insurance companies. And so when you said, like, hey, here's some of these, you know, fixes, I'm like, well, it's a big promise. I was like, I know we have some influence, but I don't think we have enough influence to really change some of these insurance companies in regards to how they operate. Just high level, I just think about um, the way they roll out products like in the past, and you start looking at like IULs and VULs and some of the lawsuits and lack of transparency within certain things. And um, I think that's the starting of some like newer products and newer things creates a lot of friction and uncertainty just about insurance in general, and it creates a bad reputation across the board. Now, the good part is I've seen a lot of improvements. I think a 2000 VUL to a 2025 VUL is an incredible difference. And when an IUL started to high UL today, I'm like actually like a big proponent relative. And so those are just the small things. And then you start looking at some technology and you're just like, man, you're a $1 billion company, a billions of dollar company, and you still operate like you're in 1950s. I'm like, why? How? Like, how is this even possible? And so I just start to look at some of the higher level issues, and there's some things that we can't fix. And I'm looking forward to talking about some of the things that we can focus on in regards to just planning, conversations, communication, and even things that we can do better here as a company that I'll be more than happy to call us out on. So overall, I'm excited about it. But again, it's going to be a very optimistic conversation. I think that productive, professional. It's not here a bass session. This isn't an IUL versus whole life bash of, hey, if we're IULs go, so we're going to clown on whole life and whole life's bad, and we're pro IUL, vice versa, right? We don't want to be the product person that you know I mean, that is a big issue. I do think that people in the space they clown on products way too much than focusing on the tool and utility around it as well. But overall, I'm really want this to be a sophisticated, professional conversation that adds a lot of value to the people watching.
Yeah, I love it. Austin, why don't you get started? Why don't you lead with if you were asked in a conversation problems in the industry, how would you articulate it? Would it be through your story? Would it be through observation? Because I know you're the newest person in the
Yeah.
industry as a whole in this
Mhm.
call, and I'm just
Mhm.
curious
Mhm.
about your perspective.
From my more limited experience, which kind of gives you a more recent, I guess, maybe snapshot into the industry. Like what Dom said, like there's a these are billion-dollar companies. There's some things here we just can't change on our own. But I think that our power as a company might just be like sometimes we can't change the jungle, but we can certainly chart the best path to the jungle. And there's certain areas of the jungle that we won't, take our clients to. For instance, like we see ourselves as guides. I think one of the biggest problems that, and I encounter this, and I when I talk with clients who maybe they've called around, they've gotten a couple quotes. One of the biggest problems is that people expect life insurance, like that they expect to buy a product, like that there's this script that life insurance agents they get on, and it's like they're like, oh, I'm going to try to find like something that some product that is going to be commensurate with your income at a certain percentage, and without ever actually taking into account like, can this person actually afford it with their cash flow? But most importantly, does this actually get them closer to their goals? I think that so much life insurance is being sold that doesn't actually solve any problems that the person is experiencing. Because there's some people who even call us, and they're like, oh man, like I love the infinite banking style thing. Like I totally agree with like with that philosophy, and it's like amazing. Like how many kids you have? Oh, I got like 6 kids or whatever, and you're like, oh, and so you're thinking like $100,000, $200,000 whole life policy is going to cover your human life value. Like once again, like we need to be in the business of solving problems, and it only comes when you actually stop and slow down and actually figure out what their situation is. Ask some really hard questions, and then you can figure out like where life insurance might actually help them meet their goals. I've talked with a lot of people who are like, man, you're the first agent I've talked to who actually stopped and slowed down and actually figured out what I needed. And some of those conversations, we actually end up saying, dude, I don't think this is a good fit right now. Those aren't really common, but like sometimes it's like when you actually stop and slow down, it's not a good fit. And sometimes that the thing that they called in about is not actually the thing that is actually going to help them. So I think that's a big problem. Another big problem, and I'm glad I get to go first too, because that means that it looks like I'm not just
And remember,
agreeing
we're
with us.
talking about problems in the
Yeah. Mhm.
industry, not
Yeah.
necessarily the problems that our clients have. It's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
industry insurance
Yeah.
problems.
So yeah, my apologies. Yeah, the first one was I guess maybe more of a like of a client specific problem, but another industry specific problem I would say would be relevance. And the thing that life insurance is not viewed, at least as maybe like the up and coming generations, as like a really relevant asset to be held inside of a portfolio. And I think that we're doing a really good job here at Better Wealth of making content with people like Tom Wall, Tom Wheelwright, Todd Langford, and just showing that there is actually a really great place to diversify your portfolio with an anti-volatile asset like life insurance. Yeah, but I think the life insurance is kind of seen as a relic by some people, some friends that I've even talked to. That they just don't see the value in it when there's just other kind of new and trendy assets that can be invested into. So I think that's a big industry is just relevance.
Cool.
Yep.
Is there any other points that you have?
But and I guess none that I want to just say just directly out. If you guys have any questions about that, I would be
I think we
more
could
than
I think we
happy
could
to discuss.
unpack
Yeah.
relevance, but I'll give you my
Yep.
list and then we'll
Hmm.
hear Dom. So
Yeah.
when I think of problems of the industry, have you guys seen I don't think you watch a ton of football, Austin, but have you seen the Peyton Manning Nationwide commercial where he's like, Nationwide's more than just an insurance company, blah 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 blah. Just like I'm more than
Uh-huh.
just, Peyton Manning, I'm Motivation
Yeah.
Manning. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that is I think that commercial highlights the problem that a lot of our industries in is they don't like right now the idea of not being holistic, the idea of not being integrated, the idea of lack of alignment is an issue. And I don't believe that a product without a greater picture of how it embeds into your scenario is wise. Like even if you think about it, a lot of people get a mortgage with maybe not talking about their whole financial picture. They go take out a credit card and you do a lot of these things, but the wealthy, the people that really have things going on, they have all their decisions in one place. And I think insurance companies, 30, 40 years ago, insurance was maybe one of the key places that you put your money, and now it's a part of a portfolio, and there's just a lack of education there. And so I think when you look at the problem of the industry, they've got to figure out how to not just be in the business of selling products. They've got to figure out a better ways to integrate into the whole picture, which is a big issue because you got a lot of insurance people and you got a lot of investment people, and really they should be working together. In a lot of cases, they're working against each other. And the investment people tend to be more credible because it's a little bit harder qualifications to be in the investment world. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It makes the ease of getting your insurance license is something that potentially could be working against you because you're very much seen as like car salesman. You're not seen as an advisor, a holistic coach. You're seen as someone that's selling something, whether that helps you or not. So that would be one of the first things. I would also say the second thing is the lack of training. Because insurance companies, there's a lack of loyalty to one insurance company. So whether you work with organizations like IMOs, which an IMO is essentially an organization that's contracted with a bunch of insurance companies, and so you get contracted with them, and they just kind of like pick and choose who you should be working with. Because of that, or because people are licensed with multiple different insurance companies, in my opinion, that's a good thing. The problem with that is insurance companies are like, well, we have less skin in the game. Why would we put all of our energy into training you, and then you go and sell other people's products? For the record, I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think it's like, no, we want to be the company that gives the best training, and we just believe that everyone will win, but we will win as default. And I do believe people would, look at that, but now we're getting into the solutions. I won't talk about the solutions right now, but it's like lack of training, huge problem. And so you got people in the industry that just don't know they don't know anything. Like they get their license, they're told some talking points, and then you just continue to create the lack of training in our space is insane, and it's embarrassing, and it doesn't give anyone a great look. The other aspect is I would look at our industry more focused in selling than training. They're more focused on, hey, you get into the business, get a list of people that you can corner at a restaurant, and figure out how to sell them a product, knowing very much that you won't be in the business statistically, given a year or 2 years. And so they're essentially seeing like, let's get you licensed, let's get you to sell, and then you're going to burn out, and we're going to be able to take your book of business. And that's almost like the model in itself. And I think that model, it might work short term, does not work long term if you want to say, we want insurance, the industry, to be lifted high and to be looked at as like, no, this is an important thing. And it's hard to do that when everyone's has a friend or a buddy that's done insurance and no longer is doing insurance, because it was very, very looked at as salesy. And one of the biggest problems is they are focusing on selling versus training, for maybe a couple reasons. Maybe they feel like training is too long. Maybe they feel like, hey, I'm not going to waste my time training these 10 people knowing that 80% are not going to work. But that's them reacting to the temperature in the room versus saying, I'm going to change the temperature and quote unquote do the right thing. And then the last thing I'll just say, and I want to be very careful when I say this, there are benefits, there's pros and cons to network marketing style businesses. There is. There's instances that it can be a really good business model. I think for this type of business, the insurance business, the financial planning style business, not a fan. Not a fan of, hey, sign up your mother-in-law and your buddy and your next door neighbor, get them licensed so that they can do what? They can grow your team, they can sell more people. It doesn't, I don't know. Is it insuring more people? Sure. If you're just selling term insurance, I still think term insurance should be part of a greater picture. It's a part of overall insuring you for why. So yeah, not a big fan of that. And there's a lot of people that are in these organizations, and let's just say that you may think the bar is low for people recruiting you into a traditional insurance agency. I would say that the bar is even lower when it comes to the network marketing style companies. And so then again, it doesn't paint a very great picture for our industry. So those would be the couple issues that I have with our industry, and it can just be summarized by a lack of incentives. You're incentivizing sales, and Dom's having a hard time over there. Thank you for muting the microphone by coughing. That was very kind of you for thinking through our eardrums. But anyways, the lack of incentives when it comes to the training and sales, and I think that's 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 been the issue. So Dom, you've been clearing your throat. You're ready to talk. I'm ready to take some notes, man.
Amazing. I thought the turn was good enough,
Your
but I
microphone's
apparently
that
not.
good.
This microphone is nice. So um, so first I'll start off by you know bowing to you, Caleb, in regards to some of the things you said. I really do appreciate that. I do also appreciate your political approach to some of the things in the space. It is addressing the issue, but also being diplomatic in a great way. I think you have uh, a light on you that maybe Austin, myself, may not necessarily have. That I think it's important to keep to some degree or another. And for myself, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid at all. And so when I say that is I actually made a video that pretty much talked about what you said, probably I think maybe over a year ago now. Has over 100,000 views on this channel actually, talking about the issues with some of the things in regards to the MLMs, WFG, PHP, Primerica, and the way things are done and how they do it. And I do feel that that is truly probably one of the biggest things if we're talking about from an advisor perspective that creates a lot of the friction across the board, which is sure just a lack of education. And I also have just a tons of empathy for those individuals as well too, because you get told that this is a dream that you can essentially create for your family, right? So now you're creating this emotional incentive, right? And then also you're told that you can help other people. So now you said I can help my family and I can help other people. So you get excited, right? You now start envisioning, have inspirations and these dreams. But what they don't tell you at the other end is that this is hard. This is very hard. It's hard to prospect. It's hard to learn. It's hard to get education. It's very hard when you look at the stats. 90% of people in the space um, leave within the first 12 months. Like that is a very high
That's
percentage.
terrible. If you
Yeah.
think about it, like that's horrible.
Yeah. And only about 10%. So like, yeah, like 10% of people within 5 years are like, they're even here. And it's slowly declining because it's harder and harder for, that to stick because of all the things that we're talking about, from lack of education to finding people. People are not feeling the trust in the space in the industry as much anymore. Some of the products we talk about feel very scammy, right? I think if you just go flip on social media and you start scrolling through insurance, especially when you start talking about infinite banking and IULs, it becomes something that you're just like, that sounds so good to be true. It's almost impossible to believe that this is actually a thing. And so I think that because of that, and you have such a high turnover, because of the things that we're discussing, like it creates massive challenges across the board. And I think that we're also incentivized as advisors in the space to push products because if you're wanting to make this work, you have to sell, right? You're not on salary, right? A lot of people, they have to do it part time or they go all in and they becomes a desperation mode. And by the desperation mode of just like commission only, and sometimes these sales cycles can take 3, 6 months alone, right? And that's why new advisors come in. They're like, oh, like I'm excited, I'm ready to go, and they're like, oh, should I go all in? And it's like, this is probably not, right? And Caleb and I are very unique that we started young, right? I think most people, when they start young, they're at an advantage, either because their parents have already grown a business in the insurance space, or you're able to get help from the family. I know Caleb, I think you might have stayed at home for a little bit as well when you first got started. My uncle, I stayed with him for a little bit when I got started. So like bills and expenses were essentially nil, which allowed it to learn, grow, finally get over the hump. But people are like, come and they're like 35, 40, 50. They're like, I got kids, I got family, I got bills. Like, hey, should I start this? And it's like, well, you can, but going all in on something like this would be very difficult. You have to start part time. So, but starting part time, you create the things that we've talked about of like you can't learn as quickly. You're trying to balance two acts at once, and throughout that, it just creates misalignment because you now have this like desire to get out of your 9 to 5, and you almost push a product with like higher commissions, um, lack of education and stuff. And what it does, the last thing that I'll say with it, um, is then the reputation across the board gets a bad rep. And then it just is this trickle effect, top down.
Most people have no idea where to start or how to really evaluate whole life insurance. That's why we've built The Vault. It's all of our best life insurance resources and educational tools all in one place, all for free. We have calculators, handbooks, crash course, deep dive videos on numbers. If you want to learn more, click the link in the description or tag comment below to unlock The Vault. All right, back to the video. Yeah, Dom, I want to talk about this point that you made. In almost anything else, like let's say you're in the health space or in the lawn cutting space or almost name any other business and your back's against the wall, you go aggressive and you're just like, I'm going to figure this thing out for my family, and you go knock on doors and like all of that would be, I would think we would all three get behind that and be like, that's amazing. The difference is you're not wrong. A lot of people get into space, they're hungry, they're desperate, they need to make something work. Is you can jack up a yard, you can sell a product that may not deliver, but now especially when you're dealing with financial products that integrate with people's financial lives, there's something different there. There's something different there, and that's the nature. I would say, and this is less of the solution to the industry and more of like solution to you, is if you need to make money and you're in a sales position that is predicated on doing the right thing. Now people in the comments will be like, well, you're technically not a fiduciary and you need to quote unquote be suitable. Just like be a good human. I don't get that whole argument. Like do the right thing. Do the right thing for someone, period. Don't just like, oh, I checked the box, it was suitable. So I guess I've never ever thought about that around like, oh, I'm not going to do the right thing. I'm just going to do the suitable thing. Good thing I'm not a fiduciary. Like, I don't know. I just think that's a really, really dumb argument. And if you're even thinking about suitability versus fiduciary, you're in the wrong space, like straight up. So like always do the right thing. You should have that standard. And then you should ask yourself, like, if your livelihood is on a sale or pushing a certain financial product on somebody, I would just encourage you to say, like, if you are not setting yourself up to have higher integrity in this space, which I know it's like, it's nice for you to say because when you got in the industry, you lived at home, you had savings. I know. There is some convenience there, but I also like intentionally have lived way below my means in every stage of my life, including today, for that reason. Because it would be differently if I was living way above my means. There would be a different pressure that I would feel, and you can easily justify things. And so I think it's one of those aspects of just live in such a way where you can create space and margin. And that's not to say shame on you if you're in this space and you need to make it work. Just be really, really clear with your agendas and your what's the word I'm trying to find? Like your in not the incentives, but maybe your biases when it comes to your situation. So I just wanted to highlight that, Dom, that I think that's a big issue. And yeah.
I also want to add, I think Dom raised another good point too, and he was kind of talking about compensation. And obviously, Caleb, you also mentioned that as well. But with compensation, the compensation structure of how agents get compensated on commission, first off, if everyone knows what they're buying and it solves a long-term problem that they have or gets them closer to a goal, it's great, right? Like then there's really no issue with the commission structure because that agent provided a huge service to both the client and to the life insurance carrier. But if we have these MLMs that are just signing their aunts and brothers and sisters up who don't know what they're signing up for, they don't get it, and they'll say they have it for a year and then they surrender it. Well, everyone's out. Like the carrier is going to lose money, and then the agents are going to get like a chargeback or whatever. So like nobody is set to gain from that system if people are ill educated, and I think that's a huge issue. And I think ultimately the one when people are just selling a product rather than solving a problem or really getting to know a person's situation. It's a massive problem in the industry. Like you have to, like you said, Caleb, be a fiduciary. You have to be doing what's best for the client, and you can't possibly know what's best if you don't take the time to get to know them.
Mm. This is, why I do believe that there are many lawsuits in the insurance industry, is because Caleb, you mentioned the idea of a lawnmower, mowing somebody's lawn, etc. It's like your story when getting your lawn mowed is actually really funny. Maybe one day you could tell it with the neighbor next door, Caleb. But idea of paying $100 and then it's like, okay, it got messed up is like cool. Like you can probably get over that. But when you start to deal with death, right? Because that's a very emotional thing with people. Like when somebody passes, making sure your family's taken care of, you start dealing with very emotional ties, which is people's quote unquote investments, because people have this expectation that you're investing dollars. And when your now money is essentially dwindling or is gone, or the expectation that a death benefit was going to get paid out, or a product was going to work a specific way, it is integrally and tying to every single part of your life. And that creates massive emotional being, creates massive problems, which creates massive reputation on a negative end, right? So then you get the people like the Dave Ramsey of the world, shouting from the rooftops of like, these are scams, these are integral people. I mean, he'll talk about people that are selling this stuff are just scums of the earth, like truly, right? And if I truly felt that way, like I would not be doing what we do today. I do believe that when you do it the right way and integrally, you are helping people show up more powerfully, have a better life, have more security for the family. And so the reputation problem becomes very massive when you're starting to deal with people's livelihoods and very emotional issues. So, yeah, it's all good points there. Um, the other side of like the next issue that I would draw of like what's some of the issues is the ambiguity in regards to some of the contracts and verbiage in regards to what it is that life insurance individuals sell is very complex. Just go open up a Mass Mutual illustration and try to read through it. I've done that before and I'm like, man, like I only understand like 70% of this stuff. Like the other 30%, I'm just like, why are you saying this and why are you wording it this way? Like you create so much complexity in the consumer's mind that they have this uncertainty if this is even what it says it's going to do. And then the agents on the other end, like trying to explain it to the client, and then it becomes hard for the trust to be built sometimes because of all the jargon. And then also from our side, I do think that the issue is we do talk too much about the words like PUA. We do use the words illustration, sell off illustrations, talk about base, talk about all these insurance jargons, which makes people even more confused because they have no idea what it is. And so I think that we need to learn in this insurance industry as a whole to bring things down and make it more simple. Because if we make things more simple and it's like very A to B, C, like all the way, and we understand the client understands what it is that they're getting, I think more people would buy it because they understand the power behind it. And I think that also comes with a lack of education from the things we talked about before.
If you're a high earning professional, entrepreneur, or just somebody who wants more control of their money, we offer something called a clarity call. It's a one-on-one conversation where we look at whether or not overfunded whole life insurance could help you build a safe, liquid, and tax-advantaged foundation to help you grow your wealth. Now, there's no pressure or fluff. We're just looking to get real clarity on whether or not this strategy aligns with your goals. So click the link in the description below or hit the tag comment, and now we'll go back to the video.
I put into ChatGPT just the question around what they would say, and the first big problem is the low consumer awareness and understanding. I think that's accurate. Distrust of agents and industry. I think we all talked about that. One of the things that you mentioned, Dom, is that there's a big distrust, and you even think of like the Dave Ramsey's of the world, but he's right in a lot of aspects, and that's why we aren't just trying to be the apologetics full force. I don't know about you, but I think you lose a lot of credibility when you just take one side on everything. No, like you must be wrong because you go against my beliefs. It's like, no, actually, there's a lot of great points, and if we're not going to acknowledge those points, then we're just as bad. We're just as bad, if not more guilty. And so I think that's why we have to call strikes and balls, and that's why a lot of our videos are calling out people in our own industry, because we want to be able to maintain integrity in that. And I actually believe that's a better way to go about it than through regulatory reasons. Like, I actually think better ways is to expose and like call people out. I really do believe that's better. But if you look at our industry, there's not a lot of people making videos and all, and so like it almost like it like thrives on lack of transparency. And that's why probably in the last couple of years there have been people that are like, if you feel threatened about someone learning or watching a video, watching a book, reading a book, and that they're going to change their opinions, that's another like, hey, maybe you should rethink what you're doing. There's a underinsurance crisis, which is there's just a lot of families not being insured. That is a result of all the things that we mentioned. But this is what a lot of people are saying when they're like, hey, we need more MLMs, because they're able to get into the families and groups that would never talk to a financial advisor. I think that's a valid point. I think there's a world where we can be innovative and think, how do we get to those people? But maybe how do you not have your brother-in-law actually be the advisor or the agent? Is there a world to incentivize someone connecting you with an expert? I think those are questions. I'm not against having people get paid for getting people insured. It's just like, whose responsibility is it for them? The complex products, you mentioned this. I mean, reading through these products, and now you have every insurance company has multiple products. They're 80 to 100 pages long, and it very much feels like you're an attorney that's creating some jargon that you have no idea what's going on. The agent doesn't have any idea. The consumer doesn't have any idea. The home office doesn't even know. And it's like, it's one thing to read the document, but it's another thing to actually understand the document. So those are problems. Then you also, like, when you look at like index universal life products, as you know, and others, the more complexity sounds really great, but the more complexity could bite you in the butt. So those are just things to look into. Underwriting, I actually think underwriting has been a benefit. A lot of insurance companies are getting more innovative and making it more efficient, but the fact of the matter is, you get this unsexy product that you also have to get poked and pee in a cup. In a lot of cases, it's like you're doing everything you possibly can to not sell this product. And now, while industries are getting better at this, it still is a process. So those are just a couple that came up, and I thought I would share. The last one on this list is just the reputation of permanent life insurance. And we get what we get because it doesn't have a great name, and it's because of all the things that we mentioned. Comes back to incentives. So anything that you want to say, Austin, and we'll let Dom give his final thoughts as we roll up this show.
I'm very impressed, even Dom, that you had the answers that you did, because one of the problems with the industry is actually something that Dom hasn't mentioned here, that he has mentioned in other videos, which is where he thought he was getting the right policy, and he ended up not getting the policy that he thought he was going to get. And so it's impressive that he didn't even mention that. He mentions kind of some of the other kind of like higher order, more kind of comprehensive issues that are facing the industry. But I think Caleb, what you said is spot on. I think ChatGPT was also hit the nail on the head pretty good. All of these things compound, and all of these things cause people to think twice before they go down this route that doesn't have, like, man, I might be talking to like a slimy agent. Man, I might have to get poked. And pee in a cup. Man, I might, I might have to face some, I don't know, some economic uncertainty here or something. Like there's just a lot of reasons that we give people to not go down this road. And if we just had, maybe as a company, and had a little bit of unreasonable hospitality, if we could do things differently, we can't change obviously the entire industry, but we can certainly maybe influence the people closer to us, and we can send some ripple waves out across the whole industry. So I think that, small changes that we make, even though we're a really tiny company, people will notice, and people will, if they like what they see enough, then maybe they'll start making some of the same changes too. So very hopeful that all of the problems that we have said here today can be solved. Now we were going to say that we're going to end on Dom. So
Tom, you get the
There we
pleasure,
go.
no pressure. It's the fastest growing insurance show in the
That's right.
world. Don't mess
You know,
this up, man. If you
it's hard
learn
to
from me.
wrap up you know, put the fries in the bag, as the young kids would say, when we're not talking about solutions and we're just talking about the problems. But you know, at the end of the day, the life insurance industry was originally created to like protect families, right? Have a death benefit in case something happened for somebody, like that's the intention of life insurance. Somewhere along the way, it became way more about protecting profits and it being about money, which, you know, obviously people need to make a living. So I also understand. But because of that shift in regards to like focusing on money, finances, profit, the industry just has created a bad reputation for itself. I think in the financial services, you know, from financial planners, from corporations, from big, you know, influencers like Dave Ramsey, like it's just created its own mush for itself. Like it's self-fulfilling prophecy where because of the things that have caused the issues, have created bad reputations, have caused the people in the higher influence to speak bad about it, which causes the consumer to then, you know, distrust it, which creates the problems of not many people are insured. And then we have to sit here and talk about like, well, how do we make this better? In which I'm looking forward to doing in the next episode. But until we confront these problems and talk about them, we can't make them any better.
Thank you, Dom. We want to hear your thoughts in the comments and tune in for next week when we talk about the solution. Thanks, guys.